Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this month's edition of What's Your Plan? My name is Steve Lorberbaum. I'm the owner of Assisting Hands Home Care. And monthly, we talk to an industry expert about something of importance in the world of aging. And so we've been doing this, I don't know, Patricia, a long time now, over a year. And each month, we try to have somebody come in to share with us information that we find would be useful to the families that are out there living with their loved ones who are aging in place or in communities or facilities, wherever they might be. So Assisting Hands, we do private duty home care. So we put aids in people's homes. We assist people post-surgery. We've worked in hospitals, rehabs, assisted living communities, independent living communities, people's independent homes, apartments, and even in hotels when people have come in for surgical specialties that are only in the Washington area and they need to stay in a hotel for, from 2 nights to a month in recovery mode. So that's what we do. We serve all of Montgomery County, the sort of northern half of PG County, and then Fairfax County, Virginia. And so today I'm really excited because we have an opportunity to talk to Jenn Gruber, who is a coach for adult children who are caring for their aging parents. And if any of you have those folks in your life, you know some of them are really easy and some of them are really challenging. So I'm excited to hear from Jenn about her experiences and how she can help you all navigate that process. So Jenn, why don't you give us a brief introduction?
Hi, thanks so much, Steve. Thanks for having me. So as Steve said, I'm a life coach. My specialty area is family transitions. So I love working with clients whose parents are aging and who are just navigating that transition and the changing dynamics of their relationships. People most often come to me because they find themselves in this crisis mode. They're already busy with their own careers and lives and families and managing their own household. And now their parent needs more from them. And that they have, it's tough to figure out how to incorporate that into their lives. And what I most often hear from people is, I feel like I just need space to breathe. Like, they're putting out fire after fire after fire and can't really get a handle on the whole big picture. So what I help them to do is to really get clear on their goals and priorities, so that they can, take back some control of their lives and feel like they've got a better handle on things. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Okay, so, and you come to this, like many of us in the senior world, from personal hands-on experience. So share with us just a little bit on kind of your journey into how, helping your parents and then having that aha moment that maybe this is a thing.
Sure, absolutely. Several years ago, my dad had Alzheimer's and I moved him to a memory care facility and he's subsequently passed away. But through that process, I learned a lot about dementia. I learned a lot about living with a parent with dementia, a lot about like that really long drawn out grieving process, how sad it is, how frustrating, how unfair it feels. And what I found was, eventually over time, I learned to kind of move away from being sad about having lost the dad that I had known before to finding a place where I really could find a new, really nice connection with him. And I came to a point where instead of dreading my visits to memory care, I actually looked forward to them and really, really enjoyed that time and the bond. It's like a different type of relationship, but really special still. So when I got into coaching, I realized that there are so many people in every aspect of my life who were dealing with aging parents. And the comments that I was hearing from people were like, oh my gosh, my mom really needs to downsize, but she doesn't want to get rid of any of her stuff. And, I keep telling her she needs to just, throw stuff away. And she wants my kids to take, the tea service that's been in the family for 50 years. And her feelings are hurt that my kids don't want it, but, the kids don't want that. So I said, that was one conversation. Other people were saying, I know I need to go visit my parents in Florida, and I wish I were looking forward to it, but I'm just dreading it because their house is always 95 degrees and they have their favorite news station blaring, full blast. And, all these conversations made me realize that it just made me really sad that people, so many of us are so overcome with sadness and frustration and resentfulness. Oh, that's another big one. My dad shouldn't be driving anymore, but he refuses to give up his keys, and my brother disagrees with me. My brother thinks he's fine driving. Lots of issues around siblings who don't see eye to eye on things. That makes things really challenging. So I found that people were so caught up in all of these uncomfortable, negative feelings and emotions that they were really missing out on the opportunity to enjoy their last months and years, in this final stage of their parents' lives. So that's what really drew me into this area of work.
So, we've had in the past a geriatric care manager speak with us, and so. How would you distinguish what you do from the work of a geriatric care manager?
Yeah, that's a great question, Steve. So what I do really is a geriatric care manager. They provide such a valuable role and absolutely have skills and expertise that I don't have. They're really able to help assess what the medical needs and what the most appropriate placement for a loved one may be. My focus is more on the child, on the caregiver, on the person who's supporting the aging parent, and really on helping them to figure out, to find solutions that they feel good about, and to do it in such a way that the relationship is really preserved and can flourish, and they're moving forward. Okay. So I'm coming at it from the relationship point of view, and from just from that caregiver, what they want is to feel like they're more in control of their lives and they've got a handle on their time. The result that they typically see that they're not expecting is their relationship. They find so much more joy and fulfillment in their relationship.
Gotcha. So I know one of the things that we hear in home care all the time is immense frustration on the part of the adult children, right? Because all of a sudden they're now thrust into the role of sort of parent, where they see their loved ones doing or making bad decisions, and now they're thrust into the role of trying to convince their parents not to make those bad decisions or to make different or more informed decisions. So what kind of advice or thoughts do you have for someone when they're experiencing that frustration, that mom and dad just won't hear what they have to say, won't acknowledge their physical or mental or emotional decline? Right.
So that's a great question. I love talking with people about communication and effective communication, because I think a lot of times that's really what it comes down to. And I think that what you said in your question was key. People want to figure out how to, if their parents are making bad decisions and they want to convince them how to do something differently. And that's how a lot of people approach these conversations is, this is what I want them to understand. This is what I want them to change. When instead you approach it from, when you go into the conversation instead with curiosity and with the intent of listening, it can really change things. When you, we'll use the driving example. You know, my dad shouldn't be driving anymore. Dad, we need to take your keys away. You know, I'm fine driving. You know, there's like an immediate clash there. When instead you can ask, you know, well, what is it about driving? What is it about driving that you would miss? What would you miss if you weren't driving anymore? What is it that you know that driving does for you? And then by asking questions, you sometimes can learn things that what happens is it gives you kind of an entry point to redirect the conversation. And instead of your parents thinking, you know, she wants to tell me what to do, she wants to take away my independence, she wants to control me, you can reach a point where they feel like, okay, well, she wants to understand me. Coming at it from a listening perspective helps to open up a lot of options.
Gotcha. So it's interesting. So we had a similar problem with my father-in-law who has dementia and wouldn't give up his driving, even though he had lost his driver's license.
Right.
His wife would encourage him to go to the store, even though she knew he had dementia and wasn't allowed to drive. And her response was, well, he doesn't know he's not allowed to drive. And so it was a double whammy of how do we convince both of them that this is a bad idea? What we ended up doing actually was engaging the local police force. They live in a small town in Florida. And we had the policeman come by the house one day and say, hey, Hank, you know you're not allowed to do this anymore. And we're going to put a boot on your car to keep you from doing that. And one of the adult children went to the house, put a club on the car, and that was that. He never drove again because the police, who he respected, told him he couldn't do it. His daughters,
yeah,
not going to happen because they're his daughters. So sometimes it does take a creative approach to help people. And is that something you would provide, giving them the
absolutely
feedback?
Yeah, lots of and creative approaches. It's going to be different for everyone. So I always tell people I don't give advice, you know, I don't, because there's no set advice that I would give to every client, because every person is different, everyone's situation is different. And so what I do is just create a space where we can explore, you know, what your unique individual situation is like, and what your parents, what the best approach for you with your parents may be, and then you know how you can feel good about that.
So
and it sounds like for you, the boot was a great solution. That was something that everyone felt like, you know, this was effective, it worked. And, you know, there might've been a little, actually, it doesn't even sound like there was a little fib in there. Like it was all true.
No,
right?
there was some fibs in there, but I, you know, again, look, my view, and a lot of people don't share this view, is that there's something called therapeutic fibbing, and that sometimes fibbing is what's necessary to help keep people safe. And exactly. So I'm all for it. That doesn't mean that that's right, and it may not be right for other people. But for me, it's what do we need to do to help a person who's cognitively impaired be safe in their environment, because they're no longer able to make wise decisions for themselves.
Exactly, and that's right in line with the conversations I have with my clients. You know, a client who says like, oh no, I could absolutely never lie to my parents. That's just wrong. It goes against my values. You know, honesty is so important to me. I could never lie. Okay, well, let's break that down and look at it and you know,
gotcha.
And
so now do you help counsel or advise people who have difficult family relations? I mean, so in home care, you know, I sit in family meetings as a fly on the wall and watch family members, all with a different perspective, debate what they think is the right thing to do with their loved one. And
Yeah.
you know, look, there's no right or wrong answer, right? There's an array of answers. Now, some people have the wrong approach because they view that it's their money, their parents' money will soon be theirs, and they want to preserve that asset for themselves, which to me is not passing value judgments, thinks is wrong. But how do you work with families where there's that kind of dynamic? Do you work with individual only, or would you work with a group of members?
Yeah. So I do also offer to work with groups with siblings, and that is really interesting because sometimes there are very different opinions, and it's tough to kind of reach a consensus. The most important thing in working with groups is to find whatever that common ground is, to really get to, everyone has different ideas about what the best solution for now is. What is it that everyone can agree on? And usually it's, well, everyone agrees that they want, say, their mom to be safe. And even if it's just that, they all have different ideas about what that means. Just finding that little nugget that everyone agrees on is a great starting point. And then, with family relationships, there's so many assumptions and so much history that comes into the conversations, or that comes into people's beliefs and feelings. And so having somebody impartial sit down and really just kind of help to filter some of that out, and to kind of reiterate, like, okay, it sounds like what you're saying is this, because, I might say something, and I don't know, my brother, my mom, my husband hears one thing, but that's not actually what I said at all. And Patricia would hear me and say, like, oh, well, that's not what Jenn said. So having someone who's able to really just get to the heart of what someone's saying without all the assumptions attached to it, and then to facilitate the conversation that way, it can be really, really helpful.
How do you help families? So, for us, we provide home care. So we put aids in people's homes. Well, oftentimes we work with families that may use us for some of the hours, but they may have a trusted housekeeper who's been with the family for 1,000 years. So they want to use the housekeeper. The housekeeper may have a friend. And so you've now got this conglomeration of some people through an agency, maybe even 2 agencies, some people privately. And now you've got the adult family member trying to be the quarterback of all of this. Any thoughts on, how you can help people either manage that or move away from that? Or do you have any thoughts on that at all?
Yeah. So this just came up with me recently with a client. And I think what's really important is, if there's one person who's kind of taking the lead on everything, to really just be very clear on communication with everyone. Like, we don't give mom coffee after 4:00 in the afternoon because she has trouble sleeping at night, and we limit caffeine. Something as simple as that. Just communicating that rule, putting it in writing, making sure everyone knows. And there's going to be the whichever one of those caregivers you listed who's like, what? That's ridiculous. She loves drinking coffee at night. She doesn't have trouble sleeping. And that's probably the one who's not there with her at night. And really, but trying to be just as clear as you can on what those boundaries are, what those rules are. Anything that, any information that would be helpful for everyone to know, just really kind of spelling that out, and letting people know, you might not agree with this, but this is the boundary that we're setting. These are the rules that we've established. And it's really important. We know you might disagree, but it's really important. We all want mom to stay in her house as long as she can. We really appreciate you all being here and being a part of that. We appreciate that you want her to stay here as long as possible too. And having everyone's cooperation in this plan is part of that, and is going to help us achieve that goal. I think letting people know, even if you disagree with them, that you really appreciate them is a big part of it too.
Gotcha. And any thoughts? So we have, actually, I don't know that we presently have any clients like this, but I hear stories all the time of people that have cameras in the home, mm-hmm. but they watch them all day long. So they're constantly observing their loved one. Any thoughts for how to get people to sort of step back? Because, it's to me very unhealthy, because you don't have a life. If you're constantly watching what's going on to make sure nothing's going wrong, any advice for people that have that fear and need?
So the first thing I would ask a client who is engaging in that is, how is that serving you? How is watching these cameras 24/7 helping you? What is that doing for you? And because I would imagine in a lot of cases, it's a way that they feel like they're doing something. They're keeping an eye on things. They're maintaining some kind of control. And so we would look at what that's doing for them and what it's costing them. What is keeping your eye on those cameras all the time, keeping you from doing? Is it giving you more peace of mind, or is it making you worry more? How is it impacting your life, and what's the benefit you're getting from it? And what would happen if you weren't watching the camera? What would the benefits be of not watching the camera, and what would the potential risk be of that? So we would, I think that's where we would start.
Gotcha. Okay. So any thoughts or general, I realize everybody's different on self-care, right? Because in the end, you can only be your best self if you take care of yourself. So
absolutely.
How can people do that when they're in the midst of all of this?
Yeah. So the number one thing that I tell people as far as self-care is, whatever you're feeling is normal and is understandable, and your feelings aren't wrong. If you're feeling, sad or resentful or guilty or frustrated, acknowledging that's how you're feeling, and telling yourself, well, of course I'm frustrated. This is a frustrating situation. Just not judging yourself for those feelings, knowing that however you feel is normal and understandable is the number one thing that you can do for yourself, because just showing that compassion towards yourself, that just puts you in a more positive mind frame that allows you to show more positivity outwardly too. And then beyond that, I think, so self-care looks really different for everyone. And I think a lot of people think that it requires a big chunk of time. I don't have time to, sit in a bubble bath for an hour. I don't have time to, I don't know, go get a massage. But self-care can be as simple as taking 5 minutes to just sit down and drink a cup of tea quietly, or calling a friend, and just having a kind of heartfelt one-on-one conversation. Self-care, I think, remembering that it doesn't have to be anything really elaborate. It's anything that allows you to just take a little time to focus on your own, physical, mental, emotional well-being. So I encourage people first to think about what is it that makes you feel a little bit refreshed, recharged, rejuvenated, just a tiny bit, and to find ways to incorporate that into their lives.
Gotcha. Okay. So any thoughts on the inevitable time when someone has dementia, and it's that time when they no longer recognize you as their loved one? That to me is, when I talk to families, that's the most hurtful and impactful time, because now they're just some woman or man who comes by dad or mom's house because they have no recollection of who they are. How do you walk people through that feeling?
Oh, it's so heartbreaking. And I think, you know, letting people know that they're not alone. There's, you know, I've been through that. Other people have been through that. That doesn't make it better, but it does help to know that, that it's not about you. It's your dad doesn't not remember you because he doesn't love you. It's, you know, it's not your dad, it's the disease, and really helping to just remind people that this is the disease and this is how the disease progresses. And that like, yes, it's sad and heartbreaking, and it's okay to feel sad about that.
Gotcha. And do you ever work with grief counselors or other folks to help people kind of cope with this? Psychiatrists, psychologists, is that something that you recommend? You don't recommend? Do you have any thoughts on?
Yeah, definitely. I have, you know, colleagues, referral partners who are therapists and grief counselors, and when appropriate, I absolutely would refer someone. Coaching is different than therapy in that in coaching, we're taking someone who is generally in a healthy mental place and just wants to kind of feel more fulfilled, or who has a kind of short-term goal that they need help working through. So that's my role.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'm always mindful of the time. I don't know if anyone has any questions for Jenn or for me for that matter. Feel free to unmute and ask away. If not, Jenn, any final great tip you want to impart to all of us as we embark on dealing with our loved ones?
Oh man, I already gave away my biggest ones. I would say biggest things. It just, every situation is unique. Every family is unique. And really the most important thing, I think, for any of us, no matter what our kind of specialty area in the elder care world is, just listening is so important, and hearing what people are saying, and you know, just keeping in mind that although there's a lot of similarities between different families and different situations, listening to the person who's in front of you and connecting with them, and letting them know that they're seen and heard is really key.
Great. Patricia?
Just wanted to ask our guests, Andrea, Hillary, Tracy, what's one thing you might take away from today's session? What's one thing that inspired or taught you something new?
The part about having the conversation, like not like we want to take away your car, but asking them more. I don't think that actually applies to my situation with my father, but I could see how that'd be super helpful for other people in their situation. I wanted to ask Jenn, with my father, like my parents were always said, I'm never going to a nursing home or a retirement place or anywhere. And then my mother died in December and they forgot to have a plan. And so he would be much better served, I think, being in a facility where there is someone there 24/7. But he is resistant to that anytime. To be honest, I haven't brought it up very much since she died, but I'm getting ready to sort of go full court press on this. And do you recommend having like a third party, like a social worker or someone also, like kind of to Steve's point about like, they're not as inclined to listen to you because you're the daughter, and maybe they'd be more inclined to listen to somebody else who they, you know, I don't know, respect more.
Yeah, I think that can be really helpful. I think in that situation, I would probably start by saying, look, I know that you and mom always said that you didn't want to go to a nursing home. You know, I know that wasn't part of the plan, but, we didn't expect you to be here alone, and we're concerned about, your safety. We're concerned about you getting the best care that you can. And that's where having a social worker or another professional to kind of reiterate, like, oh, this is what a facility could offer you. This is what you could expect from that. And to really kind of put, like, not just point out the positives, but also but I guess from a medical perspective or from the social work perspective, the benefits of being somewhere like that. I think that credibility could go a long way.
Sometimes, Hillary, one of the things that we talk to people about is one, that it's not a place you go to die, but it's a place you go to have fun. That depending on the kind of person your dad is, there are all sorts of activities and engagement opportunities that he may now be missing. The other thing we talk to people about sometimes, I get called in just to talk people out of home care. And I realize it's not self-serving, but it's the right thing to do, is the cost. If he really does need 24/7 care, that's a very expensive proposition. And maybe he can afford that, but maybe he has to say, I got it. That's a lot of money. And I don't know that I really want to spend that money just to stay at home. So sometimes that's an option to talk to people about, as well as don't focus on the bad of it's not safe for you here. It's more, this is all the great things you can get by moving to this place.
Yeah, and the cost issue, I mean, in his case, the money will just run out. And it's not about me wanting the money for me. There's these many dollars and they're going to run out. And, if he lives for more than a couple of years, the money will be gone. So, yeah. And unfortunately, you don't know how many years that's going to be.
You know what?
It would be so much easier to plan if we knew like exactly how things were going to play out. I think another thing, one thing that's really common is for people not to want to lose their independence, to want to be able to make their own decisions. And they feel like by staying in my house, I'm staying in control. I'm making my own decisions. And what they often don't realize is that, if something happens, if you fall, then you're going to have to move. Then the decision is going to be made for you by the circumstances. Now, at the point where you are now, you can make that decision on your own. No one has to make it for you. You can decide on your own to make this move now.
Now, that'd be easy if there was a fall, like you say, then there would be no choices.
And Tracy from Oasis is an expert in helping families figure out whether assisted living makes sense for them. So I know she's on this call. Andrea, did you want to say something about a takeaway from today?
Yeah, I mean, I think Hillary, got it that the the issue around communication is something that I'll take away with. I'm dealing with a situation where my dad is in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm in the DC area. And I go out there, I probably spend between 2 and 3 months out there a year, at least the last couple of years. And it's a issue with other people in the family, kind of seeing the situation but kind of railroading over him. If he's with my sister, she will just jump in the driver's seat if they're going somewhere and not ask him. And with his personality, he's obviously in denial about the decline in his capabilities. But I feel like I'm walking this line of I have a very special relationship with him, and it feels like a breach in loyalty, if I kind of admit or get on the bandwagon of, you're not supposed to drive, or we have to get somebody in the house to take care of you. But, I'm trying to figure out on that spectrum, where that line is. I want him to be able to maintain his self-respect, and it's very important. I think if people force things on him, he's just going to be angry and resentful, and it's going to really affect the quality of his life. On the other hand, I don't want to be responsible for, erring on the side of letting him drive, you know, on a highway when he shouldn't, and God forbid, you know, something happens. So, you know, so that's, it's that those communication issues and how I can talk to him as I'm your ally. I got him to buy an Apple Watch that has the fall notification. And mainly that was, I did that as, please do that, you know, for me, for us, for our peace of mind, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great that it sounds like you and he have a really close, really special relationship. And that's so, that's going to just help you so much throughout this. I think you're at a real advantage where you can kind of sit down with him, it sounds like, and have just an open, honest conversation about where he is. And, you know, well, you know, Dad, how do you feel about living here, about driving, and kind of start from there? You know, is there anything that you're worried about, or kind of approach it that way?
Yeah, he keeps saying, "Oh, well, wait till I'm a little more feeble."
Well, and then
it's always start a journal.
Yeah,
start a dateline. Give him a dateline.
Well, and I love helping people get really clear on that too, like those criteria. Like, okay, you know, we can wait. We don't have to do anything right now. But when is that gonna, what does more feeble mean? Like, what is that? Yeah. Like, what are those kind of guideposts, and what you know, when you get to, because everyone thinks that they're not that bad yet, or they're
yeah, he thinks he can.
Yeah, Hillary's comment is adorable too. It's like, you know, it's like when the brakes are going in your car, but you're the only one driving it. You just don't notice until they're really bad, right? Because you're getting used to it. You're getting used to it. We all get used to it. We're all aging, thank God. Yeah. But I want to thank you all for being here today. I know Jenn has lots more information to share. If you want to set up one-to-one time with her, go for it. You've got her contact information. Tracy, do you want to say a few words? I didn't mean to leave you out of the conversation.
No, thank you so much, Patricia. No, I think Jenn is great. One thing that we do at Oasis is we find out a little bit about the senior and what they like to do, what the hobbies they are. And then when we are considering a community, we look to see if that community offers those options for the senior. So when they go and say, oh, I like bocce ball, and we'll say, well, guess what? This community has bocce ball. They have a vibrant, active group, and they'd love to have you participate. So things like that might encourage them to want to move to assisted living. So it might help.
Yeah. And we had a client that was in a assisted living, and he kept saying, you know, I don't want to get, I refuse to get rid of my car. And they were like, but you can't drive, Dad. And, you know, and he was like, no, I don't want to get rid of my car. And he got a room that looked out over on a parking lot, and his car was parked right in front of his window. And it was a beautiful antique, not like antique old, but like a, you know, like a 1980, whatever, red something. And he was so happy just to be able to look out the window and see the car. It didn't get driven unless a caregiver drove it, but he didn't need to drive it. That was the point. And nobody was hearing him say that. And when he finally said, it's not about me driving, it's about me seeing the car, that changed the whole thing. And what a great way to make a man happy. He looks out and he sees this lovely car. You know, he could go out, sit in it, tinker with it, whatever. But it was a great move. Anyway, thank you all for being here on What's Your Plan. I'm sorry Steve had to run, but we offer this program every month, and we look forward to having, you know, your questions and your concerns brought to the forefront. We're here for you. We have great resources like Tracy and Jenn and many others that can help you age well with your parents or without them. So be kind to yourself and reach out, okay? Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.
Patricia.
Bye-bye.
Good luck,
Bye-bye.
Hillary and Andrea. You'll make it through. Bye.
Bye-bye.